What if Antarctica is not just a barren land of ice, but the last gate to Earth's forgotten history? Imagine standing on the edge of this white wilderness, where the wind does not simply blow but sings, a chorus of voices carried from ages long before our own. The horizon stretches endlessly in silence, yet beneath it lies a continent larger than Europe, twice the size of Australia, holding 90% of the planet's ice. They call it lifeless, but perhaps it is not dead at all. Perhaps it is only sleeping. Perhaps it is waiting. For centuries, long before any sailor reached these frozen shores, maps already hinted at a land in the far south. Ancient charts drawn in ink and memory sketched a ghostly outline of a continent where no one had ever stepped. Some called it Terra Australis, a world of fear and speculation. Others whispered of a paradise hidden at the edge of the earth. When explorers finally did see it, the myth became reality. A continent so vast and so impenetrable that even today, satellites reveal more secrets than human footsteps ever could. Antarctica is not simply cold, it is forbidden. International treaties divide and restrict it. Only a few are allowed to travel into its heart. Vast regions are closed, protected not only by ice walls a mile thick, but by politics and secrecy. Why such caution? Why such silence? Is this protection for the land, or protection from what the land might reveal? A vault of ice can preserve ruins, artifacts, even entire cities. If civilizations once lived here, their story may still sleep beneath the frozen layers, untouched by time. And science itself gives us reason to wonder. Ice cores drilled from its depths carry bubbles of air more than 1 million years old, whispering of climates and skies our species never knew. Radar sees beneath the glaciers, revealing mountain ranges buried in total darkness, rivers flowing under the ice, and lakes sealed away for tens of millions of years. These discoveries tell us Antarctica is not just a desert of snow, but a hidden world. A world that remembers. Yet it is the unknown that haunts us most. What else lies beneath? The shapes that appear in satellite images, too geometric to be explained easily. The myths that echo across cultures, of lands at the bottom of the world where gods or ancient kings once ruled. Could Antarctica be the missing chapter of our history? Could the answers to humanity's oldest questions be entombed beneath the endless white? Tonight, we begin this journey into the frozen gate. We will follow myths that speak of shining cities and forgotten maps. We will look at science that cuts into the ice to find life where none should exist. We will walk among the strange discoveries and the forbidden questions that linger in the silence of this land. Some of these stories will soothe you as you drift into rest. Others may spark a fire in your imagination that lingers even as sleep comes. Before we go further, if this mystery already stirs something within you, I invite you to pause for a moment, like this video, if you feel the pull of the unknown. Subscribe to join us as we move deeper into the ice. And tell me in the comments, what time are you listening? Is it night, as you close your eyes, or morning, as you let your thoughts wander? Your journey through Antarctica begins now, and together we step into its silence. In the heart of the Ellsworth Mountains, far from the reach of ordinary travelers, stands a peak that has stirred debate for decades. Rising above the ice, it appears almost too precise to be natural. 4 faces, sloping evenly upward, meeting at a sharp summit. At first glance, it looks less like a mountain and more like a pyramid, a twin to the monuments that rise from the sands of Egypt. Geologists have an explanation. They call it a nunatak, a mountain peak that juts through the ice after ages of erosion by wind and glacier. Over millions of years, jagged stone can be carved into sharp planes, and natural symmetry sometimes fools the human eye. To the scientific mind, this is simply nature shaping rock, as it has always done. And yet, the illusion of perfection lingers. Photographs taken from certain angles show the mountain standing with such straight edges and equal slopes that it is difficult not to wonder. What if the symmetry is not an accident? What if, beneath the disguise of stone, we are looking at something built with purpose? The idea may sound impossible. After all, how could any civilization have raised a monument so vast in a place now locked beneath 2 miles of ice? But history reminds us that Antarctica has not always been frozen. Fossils tell of a time when forests grew here, when rivers flowed and life thrived in warmth. If the land was once green, then it may not have been as empty as we assume. Could people, or something like people, have walked this ground before the ice buried it forever? Those who study the photographs compare the angles of the Ellsworth Peak to the Great Pyramid of Giza. The similarity is unsettling. Ancient cultures separated by oceans seem to share an obsession with building pyramids. From Egypt to Mesoamerica, these shapes rise from the earth as if they carry a meaning older than any one people. If the same form appears in Antarctica, should we dismiss it as coincidence or recognize a pattern that spans the globe? Skeptics caution us to be careful. The human mind is trained to find order, even where none exists. A shadow across the ice can create lines that look straighter than they are. A camera angle can exaggerate symmetry. And the story of a pyramid in Antarctica may be more legend than discovery. But myths often begin with a grain of truth, and the shape that stands in the Ellsworth Mountains continues to invite questions. Why does it resemble the pyramids of Egypt so closely? Why does it appear in a land that, according to science, once carried life but now lies silent? If nature carved this shape, then it is one of the strangest coincidences in geology. If it was built, then it may be the last visible trace of a city long buried by ice. So, the question rises, clear and unsettling. Is this mountain merely a trick of stone and shadow, or is it the frozen monument of a civilization lost to time? Could this solitary peak be the first sign of an ancient city, sleeping beneath the Antarctic ice? In the Topkapi Palace of Istanbul rests a fragment of an old map, drawn in delicate ink on the skin of gazelle. It was made in the year 1513 by Piri Reis, an admiral of the Ottoman Navy, a man known for collecting knowledge from sailors, scholars, and maps that had already travelled the world. At first sight, his chart is nothing unusual. It shows the coasts of Africa and South America, islands scattered in the Atlantic, and notes written in Ottoman Turkish. But then the eye moves farther south, and the mystery begins. On this ancient map appears the outline of a landmass strikingly similar to Antarctica. Yet here it is drawn not as an endless continent of ice, but as a clear coastline, free of glaciers, detailed with bays and inlets that match what modern radar has only recently uncovered beneath the frozen sheet. The shape corresponds so closely to what lies under the ice today that the coincidence is difficult to explain. How could a map made over 500 years ago, long before anyone had reached the Antarctic Circle, show such accuracy? The Ottoman admiral himself wrote that his sources included charts from earlier times, maps handed down from sailors of long-forgotten voyages. Some researchers wonder if those sources stretched back farther still, perhaps to civilizations that knew the Earth in ways we no longer remember. For mainstream historians, the mystery is often dismissed. They argue the map is a misinterpretation, a stretching of South America, or a product of errors common in early cartography. But those explanations leave unanswered the remarkable alignment between Piri Reis's drawing and the radar surveys of the 20th century. It is as if the admiral had glimpsed a world that should have been hidden, a world beneath the ice. If this is true, then one of two possibilities must be faced. Either ancient sailors possessed a level of geographical knowledge far beyond what we credit them, or they inherited maps from a civilization that predated them, a culture capable of charting coastlines now buried for millions of years. The Piri Reis map remains a riddle. Its fragmentary lines still whisper of journeys that seem impossible. Did it record the memory of an age when Antarctica was green, alive, and free of ice? Or did it preserve the legacy of a forgotten civilization whose knowledge has only survived as scattered echoes on parchment? And so the question lingers, how could a map drawn half a millennium ago know what only modern radar has confirmed? If this mystery has sparked your curiosity, leave a like and continue with us. The journey into Antarctica's secrets has only just begun. In the final years before the world was engulfed in war, a German vessel set course for the most remote land on Earth. The ship was called the Schwabenland. Its mission, at least on paper, was scientific. In December of 1938, it sailed south into the frozen seas, carrying aircraft, crew, and the banners of the Third Reich. Its destination was Queen Maud Land, a sector of Antarctica scarcely touched by human presence. For weeks, the ship lingered along the icy coast. Planes were launched from its deck, flying low over the white wilderness, dropping aluminum darts engraved with swastikas to mark German claims. Thousands of aerial photographs were taken, covering an area of nearly 600,000 square kilometers. To the world, it was presented as a routine expedition, a search for whaling grounds, resources and territory to feed the ambitions of the Reich. But stories began to grow in the shadows of history, whispers that the Schwabenland's mission was not as simple as it seemed. Some claimed the Germans had discovered vast caves hidden beneath the ice, warmed by geothermal heat, places large enough to shelter aircraft, or even entire bases. Others spoke of strange technologies, secrets uncovered in the frozen depths, knowledge that the regime intended to use in the war that loomed ahead. There were even tales that the Nazis believed Antarctica to be the refuge of something older, the remains of a civilization buried long ago. To those who spread the rumours, the expedition was not about whales or territory, but about reaching into the past to seize whatever power might be hidden there. Most historians dismiss such claims as legend, stories born from fear and fascination. They argue that the Schwabenland returned with little more than maps, photographs and frozen samples. Yet, the air of secrecy around the mission left space for speculation to grow. Why send a well-equipped ship so far south, just months before the outbreak of global war? Why focus so intently on a land so desolate when the Reich's ambitions burned brightest elsewhere? Perhaps it was nothing more than a display of power, a declaration that even the most remote places of Earth were not beyond the reach of empire. Or perhaps the mission was driven by a belief that Antarctica still held treasures, physical or otherwise, that could be claimed by those bold enough to seek them. The truth remains clouded by time. The records of the expedition are incomplete, and what was truly seen or found has never been fully revealed. What is left is the enduring tension between fact and rumour, science and myth. So we are left to ask, was the Schwabenland's voyage a simple quest for resources, or the beginning of a search for something far greater? Was it only an expedition of ice and sea, or a deliberate step toward reclaiming a forgotten inheritance buried beneath the Antarctic ice? The Second World War had ended, yet the world remained uneasy. In the winter of 1946, less than a year after peace was declared, the United States launched one of the largest expeditions ever sent to Antarctica. Its name was Operation High Jump, and its scale was extraordinary. More than 4,700 military personnel, 13 ships, and dozens of aircraft were dispatched to the most remote corner of the Earth. Officially, it was called a training mission and a scientific survey, but to many, its size suggested something far more serious. Led by Admiral Richard E. Byrd, a man already famous for his polar explorations, the task force was expected to remain in Antarctica for at least 6 to 8 months. Their goals were said to include testing equipment in extreme cold, studying weather patterns, and establishing research bases. For a world still reeling from war, such peaceful purposes seemed reassuring. Yet the mission would end in less than half the time planned. After only a few months, the ships and men returned home. The sudden conclusion puzzled observers. Some said equipment failures or harsh conditions forced the retreat. Others believed something unexpected had been encountered, something too dangerous or too secret to reveal. Rumours began to grow. Admiral Byrd himself fueled the mystery. In later interviews, he spoke cryptically of dangers that could strike America from the polar regions with incredible speed. His words did not sound like the report of a simple scientific survey. To some, they sounded like a warning. Then came the stranger claims. Whispers spread that during High Jump, Byrd's aircraft had encountered flying objects unlike any known plane. Circular, fast, manoeuvring with impossible precision. To believers, these were no ordinary machines. They were evidence of something hidden under the ice, perhaps technology left behind by an ancient civilization, or visitors not of this earth. Skeptics dismiss such accounts as exaggerations, born from the fear and imagination of the post-war years. They argue that the expedition's early end was caused by accidents, logistical challenges, and the brutal Antarctic climate. No documents have ever confirmed the more fantastic tales. Yet the absence of clear answers has done little to silence the questions. Why send such a massive force to Antarctica, only to withdraw so quickly? Why did Byrd's words sound like a warning against threats no one had ever seen? And why have so many details of Operation Highjump remained shrouded in secrecy, locked away in archives or left unrecorded? To this day, Operation Highjump stands as one of the most mysterious episodes in polar history. On the surface, it was a military exercise. Beneath the surface, it may have been something else entirely. So we are left with a choice of interpretation. Was Operation Highjump truly a mission of science, cut short by the harshest environment on Earth? Or did the men of that expedition stumble upon a secret too great, too dangerous for humanity to face? The year was 1959. The Cold War had divided the world into two hostile camps. The United States and the Soviet Union stood on opposite sides of an iron curtain, locked in an arms race that threatened to destroy the planet. Yet in the midst of this rivalry, something extraordinary happened. The two superpowers, along with a handful of other nations, agreed to set aside their conflict and sign a pact concerning the most remote land on Earth. That pact was the Antarctic Treaty. At first glance, the treaty seemed to speak only of peace. It declared that Antarctica would remain free of military activity. No weapons, no armies, no fortifications. The frozen continent was to be devoted to science, its doors open to research and discovery. At a time when every other frontier was consumed by competition, Antarctica was to become a sanctuary. But behind this noble vision lay unanswered questions. Why would bitter enemies agree so easily on a land so far away, with so little apparent value? Why guard it so closely, limit access so strictly, and forbid not only military presence, but also any form of resource exploitation? Supporters of the treaty point to preservation. Antarctica holds 90% of Earth's ice and much of its fresh water. To damage it recklessly would be to endanger the planet's balance. Yet others believe the motivations were deeper. To them, the treaty was not only about protecting Antarctica, but also about protecting humanity from something Antarctica might reveal. Consider the timing. Just a decade earlier, enormous expeditions had ventured south, including America's Operation Highjump. Stories, both official and whispered, spoke of encounters and discoveries that remained unexplained. Soon after, a treaty was drawn that locked down the continent, keeping vast regions off limits. The sudden cooperation between rivals who trusted no one else invites suspicion. Could it be that Antarctica was closed not only to war but to curiosity? That what lies beneath the ice was considered too dangerous or too transformative to allow free exploration? If so, then the treaty may stand not as a monument to peace, but as a barrier against truths the world was not ready to face. To this day, the Antarctic Treaty remains in force. No nation owns the land, no one is allowed to claim its resources, access is restricted, and even scientists are bound by tight regulations. Antarctica remains a continent of silence, protected not just by its glaciers, but by international law. And so the question remains, did the great powers of the Cold War sign the treaty simply to preserve a unique environment? Or was there another reason, hidden in the ice, a secret that humanity could not yet accept? If you want to continue uncovering these mysteries, subscribe now, so you will not miss the next chapter of our journey into Antarctica's hidden history. In the remote McMurdo Dry valleys of Antarctica, there is a glacier that bleeds. At its edge, from deep within Taylor Glacier, a crimson stream pours out onto the ice. Against the stark white of the frozen landscape, the water glows red, flowing like blood across the snow. The sight is so startling, so unnatural, that the place has been given a name both haunting and unforgettable: Blood Falls. When explorers first saw it in 1911, they were baffled. Here, in one of the coldest, driest deserts on Earth, a place where life should barely exist, a waterfall of blood-red liquid spilled into the valley. For decades, no one could explain it. Theories spread: volcanic activity, strange minerals, even hidden life beneath the glacier. The reality, when science finally probed deeper, was remarkable in its own way. Researchers discovered that the red colour comes from iron-rich water, trapped for millions of years beneath the ice. Cut off from light and air, the water carried high concentrations of salt and iron. When it finally escaped into the open, The iron reacted with oxygen, creating a vivid rust-red flow. To science, Blood Falls was not blood at all, but the chemistry of Earth, revealed in dramatic colour. And yet, even with this explanation, the vision remains unsettling. To stand before Blood Falls is to see something that feels alive, as if the glacier itself were wounded, bleeding from the deep. Some believe it is more than coincidence that such a phenomenon exists here, in a land already bound to mystery. It looks less like a natural flow, and more like a message, a sign written across the ice in crimson ink. What if that message points to more than chemistry? Beneath Taylor Glacier lies a hidden world of ancient water, cut off from the surface for millions of years. Within it, scientists have found microorganisms, life that survives without sunlight, breathing iron and sulfur in total darkness. To the imagination, this is not just biology. It is survival, a signal that even in the harshest, most impossible conditions, life endures. For some, Blood Falls is a metaphor. Perhaps it is Earth reminding us that the past is never fully buried, that even under miles of ice, ancient waters and ancient lives continue to flow. For others, it is a warning. The red stream looks like a wound, a glimpse of something deeper, a sign that the land itself may be trying to speak. Whether natural wonder or symbolic omen, Blood Falls stands as one of Antarctica's strangest sights. A waterfall that is not water as we know it, a wound in the ice that continues to bleed through the centuries. Is Blood Falls only the rust of iron meeting the air, a trick of geology and chemistry? Or is it a clue left for us, a message from a past buried beneath the glacier waiting for us to read? Beneath the frozen surface of Antarctica, a hidden world lies in darkness. Over 400 lakes are sealed beneath miles of ice, locked away for millions of years. Among them, one stands apart in both size and mystery. It is called Lake Vostok, a body of water as large as a small country, stretching more than 200 kilometers in length, hidden beneath 4 kilometers of solid ice. For as long as humanity has known of Antarctica, no one imagined that such lakes could exist. The crushing weight of the glacier, the absence of sunlight, and the freezing conditions seem to make life impossible. Yet radar surveys and ice core drilling revealed something astonishing. Liquid water, warmed by geothermal heat from below, preserved in total isolation from the rest of the world. Scientists describe Lake Vostok as a time capsule. Its waters have been sealed off for at least 15 million years. Whatever lives inside has evolved without contact with the surface, untouched by the changes that shaped the rest of Earth. And when samples of frozen water from above the lake were finally analyzed, they revealed traces of microbial life. Tiny organisms, resilient and ancient, that had survived in total darkness and crushing pressure. To science, this was a revelation. If life can thrive in a place so extreme, it may also exist in hidden oceans elsewhere, beneath the ice of Jupiter's moon Europa or Saturn's moon Enceladus. Antarctica's subglacial lakes became not only windows into Earth's past, but also into the possibility of life beyond our planet. And yet, not every discovery here is so easily explained. Some radar images have shown shapes beneath the ice that appear too geometric, too ordered, to be the work of nature alone. Angles and lines that seem to form patterns, raising questions about whether the lakebed holds more than geology. Could these be natural rock formations, shaped by pressure and time? Or do they hint at structures left behind by something intelligent, long before the ice came to bury them? The thought is unsettling. A lake hidden for millions of years, containing life we are only beginning to glimpse, and perhaps even something more. To imagine Lake Vostok is to picture a world within a world, an underground ocean that has never seen the sun, a secret reservoir that may hold answers to both the past and the future. Standing above its frozen ceiling, one cannot help but wonder, are we looking at a natural laboratory, created by the forces of geology and time, or at a chamber built with intention, preserved beneath the ice for reasons we do not yet understand? The truth may take decades, even centuries to uncover, but the questions remain, echoing in the silence of the frozen south. So stay with us, because the mysteries of Antarctica are only deepening. The secrets of its hidden lakes may be just the beginning, and the next chapter of our journey takes us even further into the past. When we look at Antarctica today, we see only ice and silence. Yet the frozen desert we know hides a memory far older, a time when this land was not white but green. 100 million years ago, long before glaciers came to claim it, Antarctica was a place of forests and rivers, a world alive with life. Evidence rests in the stones themselves. Fossilized leaves pressed into rock, grains of ancient pollen sealed away, and trunks of petrified wood scattered across the continent. These are not fragments of imagination. They are the remains of trees that once swayed in warm winds, of flowers that bloomed under a sun that never set, of forests that reached across the land where now only ice remains. Even deeper discoveries tell the same story. In 2017, scientists drilling beneath the ice of West Antarctica found soil that contained traces of an ancient rainforest. The roots of trees, still visible after millions of years, spoke of a climate more like modern New Zealand than the frozen desert we see today. Antarctica, it seems, was once a cradle of green life. And where there are forests, there are animals. Fossils of dinosaurs have been uncovered, showing that giant reptiles once roamed this southern land. The evidence paints a picture of a thriving ecosystem, filled with plants and creatures, adapted to long polar days and nights. Antarctica was not always isolated. It was connected to other continents, part of the supercontinent Gondwana, a bridge through which life moved freely. But the speculation does not end with trees and dinosaurs. If Antarctica was once habitable, could it also have been home to intelligence? Some wonder if an ancient people, or even an earlier form of civilization, might have risen here, in an age long before our history began. The idea seems impossible, yet the thought lingers. If a land so vast and rich in life existed, why could it not have supported more than animals and plants? Perhaps such a civilization, if it ever existed, left no trace that we can see. Or perhaps the traces are there, buried beneath the kilometers of ice that came later, preserved in silence until the day they are revealed. The very possibility turns Antarctica from a frozen desert into a potential cradle of forgotten culture, a place where memory may still sleep. For scientists, the story of green Antarctica is about climate, evolution, and the changes of Earth itself. For dreamers, it is about what might have been. The truth lies somewhere in between, waiting beneath the ice. Was Antarctica only a wilderness of trees and creatures long vanished? Or was it something more? A home, a birthplace, a civilization erased by ice and time. The ice that has guarded Antarctica for millions of years is no longer unbroken. With every passing decade, glaciers retreat, ice shelves collapse, and rivers of meltwater carve across the frozen surface. What once seemed eternal is now in motion. The frozen gate we have wondered about may one day open, not by choice, but by the warming of our planet. The consequences are already felt. Antarctica holds 90% of the world's ice. If only a fraction of it melts, sea levels rise, swallowing coastlines, reshaping cities, changing the balance of life across the globe. Scientists warn of methane trapped in permafrost, of currents that may shift, of climates that may grow violent and unpredictable. The future carried by melting ice is not only discovery, but danger. Yet in this danger lies the possibility of revelation. As glaciers withdraw, they expose what has been hidden for ages. Fossil forests, ancient soils, the traces of a world green and alive. Lakes long sealed beneath kilometers of ice are pierced, yielding microorganisms older than memory. And perhaps, one day, something more. A fragment of a lost civilization, the evidence of knowledge erased, a message from a time before our own. This is the paradox of Antarctica's melting future. The more the ice retreats, the more we may learn about the true history of Earth. But the cost of that knowledge may be a planet forever changed. To unlock the past, we may be forced to face a future of storms, floods, and rising seas. Some wonder if this is not a coincidence at all. If the ice is melting at the moment when humanity is finally ready to ask the right questions. That perhaps the secrets preserved beneath the Antarctic ice are not just stories of who we were, but warnings of who we may become. When the final pages of Antarctica's frozen diary are revealed, what will they tell us? Will we find proof of civilizations that rose and fell before our own? Will we uncover knowledge that changes the way we see our species, our planet, our place in the universe? Or will the message be simpler, a reminder that nothing lasts forever, not even ice, not even us? The answer waits in silence, and as the ice breaks, we may soon face it, whether we are ready or not. If you have travelled with us through these mysteries, take a moment now to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us continue exploring questions that lie beyond the edge of maps and memories. And wherever you are listening, at night drifting into sleep, or in the quiet of the day, may you carry with you the thought of the white continent at the bottom of the world, waiting to reveal what has been forgotten. Antarctica may not only guard the past, in its melting silence it may already be speaking to the future.